So obviously, the big news this week is all the U.S. aid going on to, well, really to be cut. Doge is going crazy right now. Politico, nobody even knew that existed, but ridiculous amounts of taxpayer money. You know, that's the obvious stuff, but it's crazy how, you know, everybody's sort of waking up to this stuff. We see that national debt every year, and you know, we've been ignoring it for like decades, it seems like, but it's like now everybody's looking at it for once, and I don't know. It's cool to just see everybody being aware of it, and Doge is doing a kick-ass job, to be honest.
It's disturbing. First of all, I think kind of going to what you were saying about there's that tracker that shows how much. If you want to pull it up just so we can see what it says.
Yeah, let me see what it says.
And then I'll keep going. But like it's disturbing to know that there's that amount of money and nobody cared to be like, what was in that?
Yeah.
And it was kind of just we're just not going to talk about it. And then they go in, and as a citizen, it's great to see them uncovering all this corruption and all this money laundering. Essentially what it is just money laundering for people to get paid for all this ridiculous stuff. But to see that the White House was using, or the government essentially was using Politico to push their agendas because they were giving them taxpayer money. And it was like $16 million or something, which is a lot of money still, even if it's not billions of dollars, but it's not just like here's a donation or here's something like that's a lot of money.
But you know, to think that if you were in office and then, you know, spent that money to get reelected, that you weren't supposed to, that's White House funds, that's, you know, government funds for the people essentially.
Yep.
You know, that I forget what it is, but they come after you for what they tried to do to Trump, essentially. But you just can't finance things out of that, and they're not going to do anything because it's too late after the fact to go after. Everybody's so focused on what we're going to do now, all these new people. But it's a shame we can't go back through and really audit what was happening before Trump got in office. And that's the deal with like Kash Patel being delayed as FBI director, or is it CIA?
FBI.
Yeah. Okay. You know, people are just saying so they get a chance to clean everything up before he gets in there, and I can only imagine that's what they're doing. They're redacting and burning stuff, and they're pulling out shredders from like 10 years ago.
I mean, they could do that, but if they catch them burning evidence, people will all just go to Guantanamo Bay. Like,
I don't know. They do a good job of keeping a blind eye.
Well, we don't know how deep the hole goes over there, but like I'm thinking face level, like they're gonna have a patsy who gets blamed for hiding all this information, kind of like this is the fall guy, and then it all goes away. Yeah. That's kind of what I assume would happen.
Well, it's just like a failing corporation, and then they sell it to somebody else, and you know they get all the blame. But I think anybody that had any involvement in all of the interesting stuff that would have been happening over there, they had plenty of window and opportunity to get out of there, and opportunities to, you know, if they want to probably disappear or just to transition somewhere else and get established doing something else.
Yeah. The nice thing, though, is, I mean, in the Obama administration, this happened, Biden administration, this happened, but they would use events like sporting events or concerts or news to distract from them hiding their corruption. And now they can't do that. So it's like we actually get to enjoy all these things. Like the Super Bowl is coming up.
Yeah.
And it's like we get to enjoy that without thinking like, oh, they're just using this as a ploy to cover up their stuff. Because like the big news networks like NBC, ABC, even Fox, they use these big events to not have to like put light on these like news topics that actually need to be reported on.
Yeah.
And so now both are happening, where it's like all this good news reporting is coming out, and we get the joy of like.
Well, it seems like there's a lot of like subplot either way. You know, it seems like people from both sides are gonna be, you know, tuned in, and there's a lot of just subcontext of anybody that, whether they're, you know, just you know, silent reporter, doesn't matter. Anybody out there that's talking, it's like everything that they're gonna say about the game, it has some sort of context, especially because it's the Super Bowl. Yeah. So,
and he's going. Trump's going.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he like I think it's like a 75%, but he said so. Either it was confirmed that he is going, which I'm pretty sure because Secret Service is like upping the security there.
Yeah, I would imagine.
But the only reason he wouldn't go is if they said, hey, there's a bomb threat, whatever. But I think he's going to go because I don't think Biden went, and I'm not sure if Trump went his first term. I don't think he did. But anyway, he's going to be there. So imagine just those seats alone now that he's going to be there. Like,
well, that definitely puts a spin on it if he's going to be there in person too. But it also feels like, I don't know, I feel like Coliseum type times are back. Like all the, that's real society, you know, people, we were numb to it and we were just stuck in this cubicle sort of like 9 to 5 thing for a while. But like, you know, the more we've woken up to things and we sort of see past the cages that they set there, it's like once everybody is outside the cage, it's like, oh yeah, like wicked stuff's going on all the time. People, corruption, you know, a bunch of crime that's just unchecked for and like paid for even at certain points. But yeah.
I'm on the same topic, and I'm not sure if you saw, like they're taking the NFL is removing all the end racism stuff from the field. I'm not sure if you ever paid attention to it, but in the end zones, they had it was like I forget what the word is for it, but they basically had a slogan called "End Racism," and it was from the Biden administration basically saying everything is systemically racist, so we just have to keep talking about not being racist, and therefore we would cleanse our inner self of racism. It's basically who could say I'm not racist the most.
Yeah.
And then you win the prize. So the NFL would put it on the back of players' helmets. They'd put it on like the end zones.
And it literally just says
end racism. And it was ridiculous. And they did it in Europe too, like where they had all the players take a knee and they'd be like, oh, we're fighting against racism. And it's like, all you're doing is doing something for a performance to show people that you care.
If I took a class of kindergartners and gave them all shirts that say whatever I want it to say, now those kindergartners think that. It's like that's what you're doing to these athletes at the end of the day that don't need to be pushing any sort of political agenda.
Yeah, and it's cool because they're getting rid of it. So the NFL came out and said, hey, we're going to stop putting it there. So I saw this on X, and it was the perfect way to explain the left's ideology and the right. Mm-hmm. So somebody who's a pretty prominent reporter, I believe, he either worked for CNN or NBC or some, I think. Right. And he said, NFL, like, F you, F all your sponsors, can't believe that you're this racist to do that, like, because, whatever. And then this guy quote tweeted him saying, hey, I saw that your bio didn't say that you're against herpes. So therefore, I'm going to assume that you are for herpes because it's not in your bio. And it's literally, that's their idea. Yeah. It's like, if you don't come out and say, I'm against this topic, then that means you're for it. And it's like, we don't have to be for racism or assume that we're against racism and have to put it in the end zone. It's just a common thought of, racism's not good. But we don't have to put it everywhere. It's ridiculous.
It's like the whole, like, if you give a mouse a cookie thing, but it's like if you give a liberal any inch at all.
Yeah,
because to be honest, we're being nice. Like, that's what everybody's doing. It's like, okay, you feel wronged, whether it's whatever, you think, historic wrongdoings, or now you're being persecuted because of your ideas or any of this stuff. It's like, all of that is severely, out of touch, and we're just being nice because you feel wronged in some way, and we can empathize with somebody that feels like they've been wronged. Yeah. So we'll be polite because it doesn't take much to go out of our way that one time. But when you've been getting in your way for like way too long, and you're just throwing a fit, and then nothing's getting done, you can't complain now when somebody's gonna do something and it's not your turn anymore. You had your turn, everybody did. But I think there were so many just different ideas, and people just wanted to be part of something that, they could have, all those people could have been doing really good things if they didn't all just, those echo chambers and like trying to console each other, and they're trying to out victimize each other and all this stuff. But if they would have stayed focused to what the original draw of why they thought that way, like, they'd be on our side. So,
yeah, I mean, and more people are coming over and realizing that, hey, I don't want to play this game anymore because it's ridiculous. You can't win. You can't even play the game.
Right.
The game is a psyop itself, and there is no winners or losers. It's, at the end of the day, like this is an example I've always had. Okay, the color purple is red and blue, but then it's like, who can label how else to get to purple?
Right.
And then how else can
so
someone
we can claim purple for our side.
Yeah, and then it keeps going to, and then it gets to this wacky area of like, we're not even talking about this anymore, or that doesn't even make logical sense, but it's who has the next idea to be relevant.
And that's the thing. It's like, it's never about, that's what I was saying. The initial draw of why these people thought this way was probably some sort of humanitarianism or, you know, something like that, right? But then that ideology that you know, helped with that one issue that one time, or even just made them feel better about it, they latch onto, and then it, you know,
it wasn't extreme enough, and then it keeps getting more extreme.
Well, it's sort of just this runaway mentality of like, you know, you're not taking accountability for anything. You're looking for everybody else or something, or, you know, history to be the answer to everything. But I mean, to be honest, like nobody has anything perfect. People die no matter how good you have it. Like you could die any day. It doesn't matter. And who's to say that it's about, you know, there's rich and poor. People are always trying to make this huge divide. It's like, it's about the quality of life that you have. And that's up to you. Because there's a lot of dissatisfied rich people out there. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, on the topic of football, it's also interesting to see a game bring everybody together and have everybody simultaneously like focus and care about one thing. And I mean, especially seeing like the playoffs and everything that's happened, like there's a bunch of like speculation on like corruption and rigging games, because it's ever since Taylor Swift got involved in the NFL, everyone's been like, this is not fair, because the Chiefs are getting every call in their favor. She's getting all the airtime. They make it to the Super Bowl 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
And she rides those coattails.
I called that too. I knew it was going to happen.
It's crazy.
Because the year before, like, you know, Pat Mahomes lost. Okay. And then I was like, okay, they're going to win next year because it's his turn. Like, that's how it goes. And then I just wasn't surprised. But
because they had to give it to Brady, right? Because
he had to get that last one.
Yeah. Because it was Patrick Mahomes won, and then Brady won.
And that's sort of the passing of the torch on that field, right?
Yeah.
So
it was, I don't know. To me, it's just, it is mind blowing that it's so obvious that it's rigged.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't think that it is. And I think it's a conspiracy theory in itself that, like, I don't think the players are involved, but at the end of the day, I think they deep down realize that it's a business.
I think some of them have definitely caught on.
Well, yeah. But I'm saying, like, I think a lot of them understand, well, even if I lose, I still get a paycheck.
Yeah.
Because it's not like the old days where you fought because you cared about the fan base and you wanted to bring a championship home. Now, if you make it to the Super Bowl, if you make it there, not even if you win, you get so much money that it's like, okay, I lose. Like, now I don't have to go do the parade and all this, and I got paid a lot of money and I, you know, guaranteed more contract years because I made it to the Super Bowl. I beefed up my resume. Like, it's all business, which makes me think that it's rigged, because the amount of money that is on the games, the amount of commercials that go into the games, the amount of casinos that are lobbied into it, it has to be scripted at some point.
Like, okay, so the whole thing, and I've known this for a long time, but I'm actually surprised that you're like, oh yeah, so on board with that, because it's like a lot of people have zero clue and fall for every little thing, and it's like unsettling. If you were to bring this up to them, they would be, oh no, you know, like they couldn't handle it, wouldn't want to hear it at all.
Yeah.
But it's you know, it's all theatrics nowadays. Like, it's more sideline action and you know, off-field camera angles and storylines and Taylor Swift's and all sorts of different stuff. And you know, I always thought it was interesting too, because you know, they really got, like, I don't know if PC is the right term, but they, you know, they just started changing rules and just kind of making the game a little baby.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, that's really when, like, so if you remove all of the actual, I don't want to say the actual athleticism, but the I don't know, there's more of like the real action moments, like the real, takes a different sort of mentality. It's almost like it, you know, it comes from like rugby and stuff, like this real rough, and now we've just made it we've just made it this, like, I don't know. Like, we might as well be playing flag football or something, you know?
Which is what
It's
they
like,
wanna do.
It's not serious.
Like,
it's entertainment.
Yeah, in the Olympics, they want to do flag football, which is a joke.
Yeah, it is.
It's like they have water polo in the Olympics, which is like legalized trying to drown the opponent, but it's somebody who's like drown proof. So it's like it's fun to watch because they're beating each other up.
Yeah.
But like football, they're like, oh no, it's too violent.
Right.
It's like, but the UFC is a thing.
Yeah. See, and that's my you know what? If you guys wouldn't have lied about, you know, the CTE stuff for so long,
Yeah.
maybe you wouldn't be trying to save yourself so hard right now. But this is the wrong time to be doing that thing. You should have tried to save yourself before it got out and it was a big deal and everybody cared. And that ship has sailed a long time ago anyway. Nobody really cares. We know it's rough. We know that happens. It's just like soldiers get PTSD. That's part of the thing. Like, whatever you sign up for, whatever you're doing, you got to be prepared for it.
Yeah.
We know that. But they get compensated. Like,
yeah, yeah. The one thing that led me to really understand that sporting events, but like in this case, the Super Bowl is rigged, is the lack of care by the camera angles, the refs, and the production team early in the game, right?
Yeah.
Like spotting the ball at a certain area or like the play clock
almost
counting
to just
down.
be loose on purpose.
Yeah, it's just like it doesn't matter. But then at the end of the game, they're calling everything so tight, or it's like one play, like
that one play every game towards the end where it's like under review for 5 minutes because they were like waiting around, everybody's getting frustrated. Then we think it's going our way, and then it goes the other way, and everybody's like, "How?"
Yeah,
but it's passed.
Or like a blatant, like they focus. There's a holding penalty, and they focus the cameras and showing all the angles. But then, you know, in the beginning of the game, there's that same hold, but then there are no camera angles. Right. There is no let's deep dive, and it pisses fans off because their team ends up losing because the same thing happens all game. And and that's why you look at European football, they have VAR technology. It shows if someone's offsides. It shows if someone scored a goal, and that's it. You know, but they give so much power to these refs who it's like, you got to think they're bought and paid for. It's a union. They're not, they're external from the NFL. So they don't work for the NFL. They're subcontracted out. And it's like, you have to imagine there's no vetting process for these people. Like I've seen bad stuff too in like baseball, like terrible calls.
Oh yeah.
And it's like how is this person who's a professional umpire?
Even, blind umpires.
Yeah, like how are they allowed with the amount of like just gambling in general, the amount of money that's on the game, how are they allowed to mess up like this and not be held accountable?
I'd put it like this, like, and you know, you play Monopoly.
Yeah.
People cheat in that every time.
Yeah.
If you're playing a real serious game on any level, whether it's like even the government, I would say is a game to these people. It's like corruption all the way through. You know, the more money involved, the more people are trying to do something. The unionize is a interesting way to look at the refs. Just because it's like, you know, they're definitely viable like outside of it. You know, they're getting money under the table from different directions to do things, and you can always sort of tell. You know, certain refs are definitely backing one side and going out of their way, and the other refs are incentivized the same way. You can just tell.
And it's also not like, hey, we're gonna pay you to call this penalty.
Right.
It's like we're gonna pay you to not call a penalty when it matters, and people miss that. People think, oh, that ref got told to call that penalty, and it's like, no, he did his job. He called the right penalty, but he's getting paid to not call these penalties when it matters.
Right.
And that's like what I think is the biggest issue is you could watch a game and be like, right there, that would have stopped the game. But then they call the penalty and that affects it. But them not calling helps a team. Yeah. And you could sit and watch any sporting event and be like, especially football. Other ones it's harder, but you could watch football and be like, yeah, they shouldn't have called that.
No, you see it all the time. Hockey doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing is like, just like you were saying with betting and all that gambling, you know, sports have always been bet on.
Yeah.
And, you know, things have been being fixed since like, you know, I don't know, the World Series and the Kentucky Derby and all this stuff.
Why do you think they have money lines? Where does the money line come from? Like that, to me, is the biggest red flag is that, okay, you guys have either computer algorithms that run all day to figure out what's the closest possibility, but then how come all the games are so close? Or let's say that there's a spread and the Chiefs have a 9 point like spread or something like that. And then it's like, oh, if Pat Mahomes, if they go and try to kick like they score a touchdown at the end of the game and they need to kick the extra point in order to have everybody win the money line, but then they go for 2 points and you're like, why did he go for 2 points? Like, and it's because the money line and someone's telling them, hey, nope, you're going to run this play because that's going to save our casino. Like,
and people are listening to like what Drake thinks.
Yeah.
You know? And what's crazy is if you follow it, Drake is notoriously wrong on all the things. So then you got people going, "Oh, we'll just do the opposite of what Drake says." That's exactly what they want you to do. Like,
it's a giant
you think he's
psyop.
really losing all these bets and gambling like that so publicly?
Yeah, he gets paid to say what they want him to say.
Yeah.
It's just like if you go on Dave Portnoy, he has a partnership with DraftKings. He goes out and says, "Hey, these are my picks for this week." Right? And I was one off. But even if you were one off, you still lose the whole thing. So it's like stuff like that. It's just like the crypto thing with like Hawk to a Girl or whatever. She had her own coin, bought everybody in, they lost all their money. So it's just the ultimate strategy of like get people's hopes high with this fake research of how well these players are going to do, and then they don't perform. Like the amount of players, like in this game, right? People are probably going to be like, oh, Saquon's going to rush for a touchdown in this. What if he doesn't? What if he doesn't even like get a touchdown in this game? Then it's like, but you could easily control that with play calling. And it's so complex, but ever since COVID and then seeing Taylor Swift get into the limelight in football, I'm like, oh, this is just a business strategy.
Yeah.
You're trying to pull all this money in and all these people who haven't even seen football, and you want to write this script to make it more entertaining. It's all fake. Like it's not real anymore. Sports aren't real anymore. And it's mind blowing.
And you know what's worse than like the NFL? You know, it's definitely not as good as it used to be as far as all that, but the NBA has gotten so much worse with all of that. It is nothing but sidelines, and it's crazy. You know, there was Travis Scott walking in, and then he just noticed Jake from State Farm out of all people, and like daps him up on camera, and they're following him the whole time. It's like people think that's a natural interaction is crazy.
Yeah, and especially basketball too. I mean, the amount of football's like Patrick Mahomes is going to play every snap because he's starting quarterback.
Yeah,
but like in the NBA, the coach can control who goes on the field, and like you could easily be like, okay, this person needs to get 25 points and they're at 20 points. Well, I'm going to sit them the rest of the game.
Yeah.
And it's like, that is, if people don't see how rigged that is, it's like,
and why the commentators can make up the excuses for exactly why, because they fed the exact same script. And, oh, well, he was this was happening. He's having issues with this, so they just want to make sure for next game that.
Yeah, and it's like, but he's a professional athlete who's in good cardiovascular condition.
Right.
Like he can work out. He can go play 5 more minutes. Don't you want your best player? Now, if you're getting blown out by 40 points, I get it. Don't play your best player. You don't want him to get hurt. But whenever it's like a closer-ish game, why don't you want your best players to be in there for a chance to win? And it's because it's all rigged.
Yeah.
And like you could see what happened with the Luka Doncic trade, right? They traded him to the freaking Lakers and he was on the Mavericks. And it's like, what's that about? It's because they're trying to get the Lakers to the NBA finals because they want LeBron James to play with his son because of all the jersey sales and because, we could do like a ESPN 30 for 30 or ESPN whatever episode or documentary on this. Like it's all just scripted and just to make more money instead of like actual sports. And by the way, I can't believe, like, imagine if your dad's a pro athlete and then you just get a one-way ticket to play. I feel like I wouldn't be able to accept that because it'd be just fake. Because I know, I got here because of my dad, not because of me.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because like, if you were that kid, you want to prove that you can do that too, right? So it's like, there's no way to do that without, your dad is your dad no matter what. Yeah. So then it's like, it's going to be like that no matter what. It's almost like a Barron Trump situation. It's like, that's sort of the your dad knows how to do this. You can grow up learning how to do this well, and you have all the resources. It makes a lot of sense, but the fact that everybody just encourages and pushes, lets it slide that extra mile to basically because they have this, fantasy idea of them playing together. And I don't know. I never really cared. They were so interested in Bronny way before it made sense to be.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense though. I mean, like you think of Tiger Woods, right?
Mm-hmm.
The same thing is happening with him and his son. They're just putting his son out there to play
I
tournaments
haven't seen that.
with his dad. His kid's not like his kid can golf, quote unquote, but he's not like a PGA pro type caliber.
Right.
But he's still playing in these tournaments. He's still in front of the camera.
Mm-hmm.
His dad, and it's because they want those documentaries. They want the success because of the sales, and it's ridiculous.
I think they realize, especially with like Michael Jordan, how much longevity and like just a name means more than actual performance. Because it's all Michael Jordan, Kobe, all this. What about Wilt Chamberlain? What about real and
Yeah.
back when it was a different game back then too.
Yeah.
But they don't have that same legendary status that sells, and the longevity because they weren't building that when they were actually playing. And the whole time Michael Jordan just set that whole new standard of commercialization, and everybody else is just trying to copy it essentially.
Yeah, they realized, wow, a name can make us money.
Yeah.
Let's just do it. It's all about making money. It just sickens me.
It is, but it's crazy because that whole thing, it's not just sports, right? It's like it crosses over into music and film and all this types because Michael Jordan Jordan is basically Nike, and Kobe was on Nike, and most people go to Nike, right?
Yeah.
And then Drake is on Nike. It's like that, again, it's like, and people are like, oh, that's so cool that he's doing it. It's like, don't you see that this is all coming your way, that they're just selling all this stuff? I don't get why people think that if somebody does something, it's automatically cool or whatever. It seems like nowadays people are so just influential or easily influenced, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think in the when was it? Fighting is the same way, like boxing, not UFC, like boxing.
Yeah.
But like you could see the amount of stuff that's rigged. I mean, even with the whole Jake Paul thing, like that's just like
obscenely fake.
It's so fake. It's not even funny, and I think it's even funnier to watch on the outside that people still think it's real.
Yeah,
it's like WWE at this point.
And that is the fun to me.
Because there's some people that like when he fought Mike Tyson, like the amount of people that actually thought that it was real. Like Mike Tyson would rip that guy's head off, but like it wasn't. It was controlled. It was like, hey, we still want Jake to win, or we still want to tie, or whatever the result was. But you're gonna get paid. Jake's gonna get paid, and then we're gonna do our own thing. And the amount of people that actually thought they were gonna fight for real.
Yeah.
And you could see that with, like, why do you think Floyd Mayweather had so many wins and no losses?
He changed the game.
Yeah, and it's because eventually somebody is 20-0, and you're like, wow, that's all talent. And now they're 30-0, and now you're like, okay, you flip a coin, eventually you're gonna land on tails, and then he gets to 40-0, and then it's like, okay, why has he not lost yet? Because he's fighting people that are good. Like he fought Canelo, and it's like, yeah, like some of these people he actually beat, but it's like in UFC, people get beat.
Yeah,
you see people that are like the Conor McGregor, Khabib destroys him.
Yep.
And then he gets rid of his O. And then it's like, why is somebody like Floyd Mayweather not losing? Like Muhammad Ali lost, Mike Tyson lost.
Well, and that I was gonna say, even going back to Muhammad Ali, like that was a lot of show, going on to sell the fights. And originally Muhammad Ali was like, he was the underdog basically, and people just wanted to see him get beat up, and they definitely built a name out of that. But yeah, I don't know. I think the boxing thing is you got to be like 12 to really fully believe all that, because it's so visible, everything that's going on, and like you can tell, just body language, like people just can't sell stuff all the way, Mike Tyson, like, dude, in his training he was moving quicker than that.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like all the videos showing him doing stuff, and then he gets in there, and then like there's scenes where he like pulled a punch and like
Yeah.
didn't throw it, and it's
He's
like
biting his glove the whole time. People were wondering what that was about. Like,
yeah, and it's to me it's crazy to think. I mean, going back from when we first started talking, is like the corruption that's now being unveiled in the government.
mm-hmm.
Eventually, I think the next thing that has to be unveiled is the entertainment space and the corruption that's in that.
Well, I think especially because Hollywood is just completely destroyed right now. It's in shambles. California not being able to be that hub that it was. And now our interest has shifted away from Hollywood because they weren't making good films when all of this happened anyway. There wasn't any pull of like, oh, we want to continue to see these people doing stuff. We'd rather see new people do stuff independently outside of this, and we'll just focus on other things. Like, we don't really care about the entertainment because there's so much of it being force fed to us that we'll find more so easily or just make our own. And Hollywood, because the people that control Hollywood, it's like they're all sort of in one group, and when it's their turn to have all the favor, they were controlling everything. If you said anything that went against basically liberal ideas that during the election, you weren't getting a movie, you weren't getting all this stuff. And now it's sort of like those people are not going to be able to find place outside of that. They're going to have to pivot to new careers entirely, mostly internet-based stuff, I would assume, or just retire, and it's going to be new people. So I'm actually excited. And then I think just with government efficiency going after that, I think you're going to find the craziest stuff in that sector. Just with all like the Diddy type stuff, and you follow the money over there, it's going to get crazy.
Yeah, when you start digging, you can find stuff like all the fossils that are down there that are hidden, and it's interesting. I mean, especially hearing that they want to. I mean, a lot of people want the Epstein files released, and then you start seeing these senators that are like, no, and it's like, okay, I don't believe you. I don't believe that you don't want it released. Who's in your pocket telling you don't not to release it, and like, with what level of threat are they like threatening this person?
Because we're not dumb nowadays. It's like, obviously they're not, the person that's on the list isn't going to speak up at all. We're not going to hear from them. And we know these politicians are so corrupt too.
Yeah.
So easily bought and sold. It's crazy. I want to say it's like maybe it's 17, but it might have been like $7,500 was the yearly salary. Was it to be I don't know, to sit in some seat in Texas, but it's designed like that intentionally because if you get paid so low, then you kind of need to make your income outside of there. So theoretically, you're easily bought and sold because we're not just going to give you your money; you're going to have to earn it outside of that.
Yeah, it's probably I mean, $75,000. You said 7,500.
7,500. Yeah, a crazy low.
That's ridiculous.
I want to say is like it's like a law about like if you're a governor.
Oh,
like that's what it's supposed to be legally.
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, it opens the conversation to, corruption with like insider trading.
Yeah,
it's so obvious.
It's the same thing as sports betting, essentially.
Yeah, but it's so blatant because, and it's genius too. You get all these people to buy in because you know what the market's going to do before it happens. And all these people go buy in, like the NVIDIA thing.
Yeah.
Right? They have this giant unveiling of their new product and their stock goes up. Right? And then this whole China thing happens with the DeepSeek or whatever.
Right.
And they say, oh, well, we're not going to use NVIDIA. And then it crashes everything.
Yeah.
Because they were like, oh, we'll just take it out. And then they rebuy in at the bottom.
Side note, I think that crash is super intentional. Okay, now get you off of it so I can get it back and remake a whole bunch more money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think all that the crypto stuff, I'm always skeptical of it, but sometimes it's like don't buy it, don't buy in off the hype. That's the thing. Buy in another time. And basically do what they're doing. Like you can do that too. I just think fear is like so contagious nowadays. That's all it is.
Yeah, the fear of missing out.
Yeah,
just like, oh, I want to get in. Because it's the fear is okay. Bitcoin, but used to be a thing.
Yeah,
before people knew what it was. And if you got in for $100 and now it's worth $100,000, like $1,000 extra money or whatever.
Everybody wants
So
to be first.
everybody wants to be that person now that gets in super early. And now they can capitalize on that.
Yeah. But I think people are getting less gullible also. And it's like people are less trusting of these things just because of things like hawk to a coin and all that, It's getting out there. Originally, when crypto was new, you had people selling physical Bitcoins to like people at, old folks' homes. And they were falling for it and all that stuff. But even old people now are kind of technically literate a little bit.
Yeah, but like all of this corruption and stuff is going to come to the light. And I think a lot of people are going to learn from it. And it's great to see what Doge is doing because they're literally cutting all the fat and they're showing everybody like, hey, people have been lying to you.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's crazy.
A little bit unrelated. So Alex Jones is sort of in a crazy situation ever since the whole Sandy Hook thing. He sort of got in trouble with that. I don't know if you saw, but so I guess the judge in that case, because he's like gone bankrupt paying for just trials, or his trial. That judge, I guess, blocked the settlement for the Sandy Hook families, which is basically in favor of Alex Jones. And so it looks like that whole case is sort of kind of slide in his favor, that being the big pivotal piece essentially. And I don't know, it's just a wild thing because now everybody's gonna be forced to look at that much deeper, and it sort of goes into the Sandy Hook, but it goes into like crisis actors and all that type of stuff. And it's like you start connecting, like, don't just look at Sandy Hook, look at all these other the Aurora shooting, that nightclub in Florida, that gay club that got shot up, and the like if you start looking into all those, you'll literally find people, not saying these events didn't happen, but there's obvious media cover up of certain things. And so there's crisis actors on screen. You'll see them both at the Aurora, Colorado shooting. Oh yeah, this is what happened. Guy came in, did this. It's crazy. My buddy got shot. And he's on the news talking like that. And then he's at the Florida one. And there's multiple actors like this. And you can actually look these people up, and they have a full IMDb page credited as an actor and all this stuff. And so that's just it's a rabbit hole in and of itself. But yeah, I think if this case really goes in Alex Jones' favor, it's like there's gonna be a whole other can of worms and a bunch of stuff to be opened up about that. So I just thought that was crazy and interesting.
Yeah. It also does show that like the government can just bankrupt you if they don't like you. They did it to Kanye, they did a bunch of people, and it just shows like, hey, like you don't have freedom of speach. We'll just bankrupt you.
Well, I think it's powerful because, and I don't just 100% support Alex Jones. Some things he says are good. He's a sensationalist. I don't like that. But if he gets this to go in his favor and it all comes back, it really kind of, because they were trying to just put their foot on his neck and crush him financially. If he pushes back, it kind of shows that if you use your rights and you're not wrong, and if our government isn't allowed to be corrupt the way that it is, like, you can push back and stand on your freedoms and your rights and, not get destroyed by it. So,
yeah. I think a lot of people, though, are scared to stand up like that because it does bankrupt you. Like, and it does put you in a situation like, for instance, gun rights. In order to get a case to prove like that it's like what the ATF is doing or the NRA is like infringing on your rights, you have to be the one that gets arrested. Yeah. You have to be the one that goes to prison and has to go before, and then that eventually can go to the Supreme Court. Yeah. So it's like 14 years or
something.
People are scared because it's like, do I want to be that martyr for society? Right. And do I want to waste that time and that money? And it's like, that's where it comes down to, is people are like too scared.
And for your average person, you don't have the money and resources to do that. For Alex Jones, he's fortunate enough to be able to still do his show and pay for all this stuff and go to trial, and he'll be all right, Yeah. If you're big enough, and that you're going to go bankrupt intentionally, it's like, I remember 50 Cent went bankrupt, and it's like, if you do things correctly, you still have money. It's just like corporately now you don't have to pay all of this, and it basically just gave him time to be able to pay for fines and stuff and not have them seize everything.
Yeah, it's crazy. So on a different note, I thought it would be interesting just to pick your brain about something. So the military now is a lot different than it was 40 days ago. Like, you have a new Secretary of Defense.
Yeah.
You know, people are joining at big rates. So do you think that is because Trump is in office, or do you think it's because we're about to go to war? Do you think it's a good time to join, or do you think everything that's happening in the military right now is like good for our country?
I would say if you don't need to go, like, we're not already at war. It's a choice right here. It definitely doesn't make sense. Like, if you're 18 to, let's say, like, 24, 25 maybe, but that's sort of your window. Any older than that, it makes zero sense to go. This is a career path, or this is a sort of a gap year, gonna set you up sort of situation. But I think the influx of people joining up is mostly because of Trump, and then, they know that the camaraderie and the spirit is going to be back. I know that people were very disappointed during the Biden administration, that the spirit of the army, or, just the military in general, was not what it was. And pretty much you got a lot of people that it's the same type of thing when everybody got fired, or not fired, let go, I guess, because during COVID, nobody could afford anything. And then all of a sudden, you got all these people that they don't have the same work ethic or any of this stuff.
Yeah.
They're just going to get the paycheck, do whatever. You had a lot of people joining the military, under that sort of thing. They knew it was going to be temporary. And they also probably thought, oh, during Biden, this can be easier and more lax. It's not like they're going to really have to go to war, right? Now I think you're getting people that have that true patriotism, that, want good for their country, that just want a chance to fight for something that's real. And I think they think it's real now. But also, there's a lot of propaganda out there. And that, of course, that's what they want you to think. And, the army doesn't care who the president is. They're going to, the military industrial complex goes. So I think it's really no different. They're just able to nail things home right now. Like, if they start showing, I'm sure they are, just a lot more ads on YouTube of, the style that they always have with the guys hopping out looking cool.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just going to get more signups now because our country is more focused in that sort of, liberals don't really go to war.
Yeah.
And so when the leader's liberal, nobody else wants to go fight for that guy anyway, because, it just all makes sense for everybody to go. But I think war is inevitable at some point. I just don't think it's going to look like we think it will, because I think we've been lied to about all the other wars to a degree as well. History is written by the victors, and then the more time that goes by, we just clean it up and simplify things. And I think nowadays war would be it's not going to be in one location like you see this, Ukraine.
Russia thing, yeah.
It's going to be anywhere and everywhere. It's going to be cyber attacks, chemical warfare, psychological warfare. And then you're going to probably have just planned assaults in specific locations. But I don't think people are ever the target in this thing. It's all about, like, oh, you have this network center that's going to, control a bunch of important things. And now we can put you in a bad position by attacking it. But I think people will get in the way of it to a degree, right? Like, things will escalate at a certain point. Because I think basically right now, if everything stayed the same, like improvement-wise, technology-wise, somebody's just going to get unhappy with how it is. Like, all right, I want to win, whatever it is, or I want to set everybody off. Somebody's going to do something, and, people will have to start responding accordingly, but we can't agree.
Yeah.
Or if we move forward and we actually build up to be something, it's like somebody's just not going to like that we're establishing something that is in the future. You know what I mean? It's like, we used to just be like probably tribes of stuff, or tribes of people all around. And it's like, how did that turn into a city that then turns into, now we've countries, right? It's real defined. It's like, it's almost this sort of meta level that's like past the actual borders of things. It's about the actual control of ideas and the spread of stuff. So it's going to get real confusing, but I think war is inevitable. I think the propaganda is probably going crazy right now because it would make sense to. And I think there's a lot of young men looking to sign up, and probably older guys too.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely, based on the commercials and everything I've seen, and Trump talking about he wants to put in his like America's own Iron Dome system, it makes me wonder, like, okay, there must be some intelligence out there that's saying like, hey, this could escalate quicker than people are thinking.
I think, just the idea of a threat creates, because we have this idea in the military over here of overmatch. And so, they're going to have, this type of weapon. Okay, we need to make sure that our weapon, shoots this much farther, hits this much harder, shoots this much faster, whatever it is. We want to be able to just overmatch. And so I think when, sorry, what did you say?
No, I was saying, like, I think it's like the missile defense system that Trump wants to put in, and like all these ads that are coming up. I think it's showing that there's going to be war soon, because there wasn't any of this. Like, I think we got put into this situation because of the Biden administration, but like, I think Trump doing all this is because there must be some intelligence out there. I think it's like, like something is coming because they're starting to up all this stuff.
I think there's definitely probably intel about possible threats, and plans, actual plans probably. But I think the thing I was talking about with overmatch is really that comes from, there's like third world fighters, and then there's like a real modern military, and the modern military overmatches. But then anybody that's really in that modern military category, all we're trying to do is overmatch each other back and forth. And so we're out competing, and that's good as far as like development of weapon systems and technology and innovation. But it's like when things are really simple, all the weapon systems are really simple, it's not going to go off at the drop of a hat like that, because it might take time to actually kill somebody or do whatever it is. But the more instantaneous, and the technology we have with thermals, and it's like you can't hide from this stuff, it kills you instantaneously anywhere you are on the globe. And it's like the more advanced this stuff gets, I feel like it's almost impossible that at some point somebody doesn't do something, because it gets more powerful. And then, it's like we have it under control, but somebody else is not going to like that we have it under control. So they're going to be reckless with the same, attempt at our technology, or even the same type of technology. So we're going to have to react at some point.
Yeah. And it's also interesting to see like the Ukraine-Russia situation. If you go like deep down the rabbit hole, is like, okay, was this a CIA op to try to get Russia to expend all their forces and expend all their munitions, and see what was actually like what a modern war looks like? Because at the end of the day, it's just a playing field. It's just a chessboard to watch. Okay, we're in 2023 or 2022 when it happened, but 2023, they're in like the heyday of like that war in Ukraine. And it's like, the amount of intelligence that they were just gathering on, like, okay, this is how Russia responds. This is what their defense looks like. This is what their offense looks like. Like us and China are both just sitting there taking notes. And it's almost like stuff like that's planned.
Okay, so then that sort of goes, what do you think about, we were talking about sports and, the players not maybe knowing it's scripted. What about war being the exact same concept, where let's say you train for real, it's brutal, and you fight for real, but it's sort of it, because if you look at things, sometimes it's very conspicuous, especially in Ukraine. Just reviewing the video content on YouTube, it's like, oh, we were just in this area, and now that we're over here, conveniently, all these these strikes happen in that place, and it seems like a lot of these people, like, they're getting word of something on their comms, they're moving around accordingly, and then the area that they were just in gets destroyed and obliterated, and there's the reports of that area being destroyed, of course, go crazy. But it seems like it seems a little too controlled, and of course people die, like, I think, there's real gunfire, real explosions, all that type of stuff. If you don't listen to what's going on out there, you're gonna die, because you're gonna be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then even if you're in the right place, it's not perfect. Like, things aren't going to go to script 100%. But I think for the most part, it's possible that the large majority of soldiers over there are sort of just sticking with the pack of where they're supposed to be, and they're sort of avoiding the actual death. And, it's possible. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, like in the sense, kind of like you were saying, like it's scripted and to be like, okay, go here, do this, do this. But for me, also, it's like we're sending all of our weapons over there to get free testing,
That's a big thing too.
and it makes sense as to why everybody was like, oh, let's keep sending money to Ukraine, and it's like let's keep sending weapons and stuff, and it's almost like that's why we send it to Israel. That's why we send it to Ukraine. That's why we send it everywhere, because we're just testing it just to see what happens
Yeah.
with our ammo. And or not ammo, but our arms in general.
It does seem like it is a huge test, and as far as like the weapons and all that stuff, but the variety of weapons and choices and different things, it kind of shows in a survival aspect as well. Like what would people want? What's desirable?
Yeah.
Even just a study on like human nature, I guess, in that type of environment, because it's like a somewhat it's almost like a simulated what if something happened in the U.S. but not quite.
Yeah. Because like Ukraine and Russia border is pretty small compared to like an overall front on America. Like if somebody just dropped on the East Coast, like it's like the United States is a lot bigger.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think it's a lot of just strategizing of like, okay, this is like, where was like the Ukraine area is literally flat. I think it's pretty flat area where they're fighting. So it's almost like, okay,
a lot of open fields and stuff.
Yeah.
too.
So it's like, how do we do that? I just think it's all just scripted based on what I saw from Doge uncovering USAID and all this stuff. It's like, well, there's so much money and so much stuff that's just being hidden. Nothing seems too far out nowadays, especially when you're thinking of like the amount of money that you make from sending the weapons, the amount of research and technology you get because you get to witness a war, the amount of casualties there are, and it's all a giant psyop just to figure out like how are people going to respond, how's that war going to pan out.
The biggest thing realistically, I think personally, I think it's 100% a psyop. But not that people don't die, like I said, but the control aspect and the manipulation, it's all trying to get data out of people. And I think most of the data that they're trying to get out of people is not from the soldiers out there. It's from people at home being shown the soldiers. What do we think about this? These tactics, whatever. And sort of, we've been shown how they're creative with like rigging up drones in certain ways. And it's like now it has civilians thinking about different things and they're monitoring those people. Okay, now if we show and expose people to this, what are they thinking? Where are they going to go? They're just trying to predict possible threats in a way or possible more ways to control us, I think. And there was no video at all of the war for like the first, I don't know, however many months. And then one day it's like all up there, GoPro'd like we've never seen before. Yeah, overnight.
Yeah. Oh, there was what was I going to say? I forgot.
I don't know. But there's a lot of talk because there's a lot of people being appointed. Oh, go ahead.
I was COVID, same thing. Like if we were just release a mass virus, how is everyone going to respond? Is the public going to do what we ask them to do? Is like we shut down all the transportation. How does that make everybody feel? Like how does that affect the minds of the children because they're not in school? They're not like it's all just a giant psyop, just to gather data and to figure out what happens if X presents itself on the world. And I think all of it is just like the giant New World Order government, like deep, dark, ultra elite people are just testing for their own ideas of whatever. If they're like, we need to preserve the humanity, so we're going to unleash this virus just to see what happens. Like, I could see all that.
Imagine being like, I think they're like, super elite and they view themselves as being pretty much like we might as well be cattle to them, Yeah. And so they don't, they're so curious about us because they're not like us.
Yeah.
And, or it's almost like a alien race coming to our planet and then like, what's up with these guys? So, and they're going to watch us like crazy to just see how we behave, but probably, put something, see how we interact with that. And I would only assume that like to some point it's how much do they need to control us? That's why they're monitoring us. And the other thing is probably how much can they show us?
Yeah.
Because they clearly have like a huge, probably 100-year gap of future technology that we're just behind.
Yeah, 100%. Anyway, you were gonna start talking about the nominations and stuff, right?
Yeah. Just a lot of people being appointed right now to different positions, and the ATF director is the big one that people are really curious about who's going to be selected, and people are debating big time. Brandon Herrera is the one name that keeps floating around a lot, but people are very mixed opinions about that, and I don't know. It's really an interesting thing because who was it? Trump appointed somebody else to. It wasn't the Department of Education, was it? I'm trying to think. He appointed somebody and basically said, I hope you do a good job and put yourself out of a job, essentially.
Yeah, I think, the Department of Education, he had to nominate somebody, but they're trying to get rid of it, the department. So it might have been that.
Yeah.
I don't know who it was, though.
It was like a lady, I was pretty sure. But yeah, if I feel like it's sort of the same situation where we don't want the ATF, but I feel like it's like for right now, it's probably easier to just put somebody else in there that's gonna not do as bad as what's going on, and we'll just have to deal with it later. But it's kind of weird thing to like want somebody that's basically gonna dismantle their own organization. And that's a tricky thing, and the trust is just not there. So I'm really curious to see, because I don't think Brandon Herrera will get selected because I don't know, people are just too controversial, and I think even though they shouldn't think this way, there's probably enough out of context stuff on the internet, or just quote unquote unprofessional behavior to slander this man to your average person. That's just not going to work. I think that's what happened in his election for was he running for senator?
No, he was running for representative.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He got close.
Yeah, he did. And it's really actually unfortunate what happened in his election. I think if he would have just gotten with the other people that were running against that Tony Gonzalez guy early on, he probably could have actually had a chance.
He just didn't have enough money. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like the PACs that came in for that Gonzalez guy.
Yeah.
Like
it was ridiculous. People came in to save the day so hard because he was not doing himself any favors. Every interview he did, that Gonzalez guy, it was awful.
Yeah.
He just made himself look immature and childish, and like he couldn't take any sort of competition. And but that's not even my district, and somebody's got to be there. I don't know. It'd be cool to see somebody like that go to the ATF and see how that works. It'd be even cooler to see it dismantled, but something's gonna happen over there.
Hopefully something happens. I think Trump is picking his battles.
Yeah.
Right now, and he's doing his team. I mean, 17 days in office. I mean, his team is throwing so much at he's throwing everything at like the opposing party that they don't have time to react to everything. Mm-hmm. Because normally if you say, okay, this is my one topic I'm going to focus on, then the other side comes and attacks that one topic and it holds it up. It takes forever to do stuff. But if he brings 17 items to the table, they aren't going to have time to go review and attack all 17. But then the next day there's 17 more.
Right.
So it's like he's picking his battles smart, and he's trying to maintain. I think he's trying to keep a lot of stuff until after the midterms, because I bet you he's trying to do a lot to get a more secure Senate, a more secure House, and then once he has that, boom, start doing everything. Because right now, if he does too much, he could lose the Senate and the House if people got pissed off enough or whatever, that it's like he doesn't want to go out like that. So I think he's trying to do a lot of the stuff that's going to get people on his side. And then once they do well in the midterms, then it's like full on, we have 2 years to do whatever we want type thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the strategy with a lot of because there's a lot of stuff that a lot of conservatives are like, why aren't you doing anything about? And I think he's just trying to play that middle guy right now, very not left or not right, just right down the middle. He's trying to get all those people and make sure that, okay, these 2 years have got to be really good. And then once he shows success for those 2 years and he gets everyone's votes, then it's like, okay, I can go do everything else that I want to do.
Yeah, I think you're right. and even Doge is taking its time going through everything step by step. They were talking about like they haven't even gotten to auditing the military spending yet.
Oh yeah, I
But
mean they just got the access to like the treasury payment system and everything, and so they're taking their sweet time, but it makes sense of the stuff that they're going at. But I mean, talking about that, it shows like the debt calculator.
oh yeah,
Does it show how much Doge has saved?
it didn't show that. I was gonna bring that back up. I forgot. It was 36 trillion.
So it went
Um,
down
Yeah, actually.
because it was at 37, I think. So I think it must have gone down then.
But still, I mean, man, the difference between a billion and a trillion is unfathomable.
The difference between a billion and a million is
Right.
crazy. Like,
Yeah.
let alone $1 trillion. That's another thing that pisses me off is when you see these bills, like when Biden passed like the Inflation Reduction Act, and it was like, I think over $1 trillion. It's like the amount of balls they have to just be like, yeah, we're gonna go into debt for $1 trillion. Like that's so much money.
insanely irresponsible.
Because 2019 to now, like the amount that we were in debt to what we're
Right.
at now is crazy.
Well, it doubled in like 2 years.
Well,
there.
I understood COVID, right? Like, because the idea of like, okay, we have to save the society or whatever, but the amount of money that they spent that did absolutely nothing for me is like, where's that money at then?
Well, it's like they tried to stimulate the economy, but then everybody's spending all this money. Everything is overpriced, and they should have been able to boost the economy. I don't know what happened. Maybe if you kept it in the country, probably
Yeah.
we would have been all right. But then somehow that's always our fault, and we have to account for it. It's like that's the biggest thing that gets me is when we are helping people that like can't vote for anything else that we are doing. You know,
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with us.
Yeah. Something else I want to talk about. That's a totally different topic. I mean, are you done? Do you have anything else regarding your nominations?
No.
Okay. So I'm just curious. So what's your like dream vacation?
It's a good question. Because vacation is such a, I don't know. It seems like that's not really even my thing. Like if I go on vacation, I would travel, but it's like I don't know if I would call it a vacation. You know?
If somebody said like, "Hey, you can go do whatever for a month, and I'll pay, and it's paid for."
I don't know. I probably would just want to go on like a journey somewhere, like like go to one of the the wonders, or like literally climb a mountain, or like I don't like to go to the people are always going to bougie resorts. Everything's all inclusive and it's nice, and you go to these places. It's like that's not really the culture of the place. You're being super pampered. They're being nice. They don't like you. Whatever that I'd rather just go to whether it's like Japan, outside of like Tokyo and stuff. It's like completely different vibe.
Oh yeah.
You know what? Like the Alps would be really cool to just. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff you could do in the Alps, but yeah, just something adventurous probably. I don't know.
I would probably do some sort of like bull moose hunt in Alaska.
Oh, that's a good one.
I definitely would want to go to like Antarctica.
Yeah.
I'd want to do kind of stuff like that.
Okay.
Not like I wouldn't want to do Mount Everest or something that's like life threatening.
Well, you made me think like outside the country as well. If it's inside the country, yeah, like a motorcycle cruise all the way across the country, and yeah, like hunting trips and stuff like that for sure.
Yeah, but it to me it's like interesting that we don't even get like so many people have opportunities to go and do like whatever they want with all their money.
Yeah.
And like for me, I feel like I see all these billionaires. I'm like, man, if I had that much money, I wouldn't be working. I would be going and doing adventure activity, like doing all this stuff. And I feel like some people just want to sit on a yacht. And I'm like, that's so boring.
It is so boring to me.
You could go, like you were saying, you could go climb some sort of hiking trail across Europe, or like, oh, I'm going to go watch the Tour de France, just, and like do something and then I'm going to go watch the Olympics, and I'm going to go watch the World Cup, and I'm going to go travel. And
like, what would you do if literally nothing costs any money and you didn't have to do anything? There was no need or incentive to do all that stuff. Like me, I'm not trying to relax. Because there's nothing to do. We're always going to relax. Like, we're always going to do that.
Yeah.
I want to challenge myself because nothing's challenging me now, you know? I want to see if I can do stuff. And yeah, I think your perception is so limited. But just when you do, it seems so simple, but like when you just go do things that you never thought you do, or
Yeah.
put yourself. Maybe you're not an outdoors person, but you go for like an actual hike one time because somebody brought you out, and you realize like, oh, I actually do like nature.
Yeah.
I maybe am a little bit more outgoing than I thought, and you just get a lot out of experience, I think, and people always do the same experiences over and over. You get diminishing returns. It's like, it doesn't matter how many times you might already be good at something, or you might already be as good as you're gonna get, and you're just mediocre.
Yeah.
Trying new things, you never know what's going on. But,
It'd be fun to do, to go on like a nuclear submarine.
oh,
I'm not sure if you ever saw like the series where Smarter Every Day went on the nuclear submarine. So he did like a 7-part series where he like got to go on an actual active nuclear submarine. They had everything on there, and he like could only show some stuff, but it was like getting to go do something that no one else could do, or do some sort of experience. Like that would just be so much fun.
I always thought it would be cool to do stuff like that, like maybe being on a fishing boat or an oil rig, or different.
It's just
stuff.
so random. There's so much stuff though.
Well, like even like because it's something to just pull you out of like American life and put you somewhere else, and it's like there's other people that got pulled out of there too with you, and that camaraderie that you get put in. It's like whenever you're around other humans that you're going through a shared experience, and then you're doing something hard. It's like those are the best times. Maybe not while you're going through it, but reminiscing. Like those are the things that you really remember and get the most out of. So like people talk to people and they just have stories and stories and stories about the oil rig, and it seems boring, but it's like the way that these people will tell it, because it meant a lot to them, or it was exciting. It's like, I don't know, you almost get excited about this stuff sometimes. So but
Interesting though.
World War III.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it's not close, but I could definitely see. I mean, I think the breaking point is Taiwan or something in the Middle East was going to set something off. I think it starts smaller and gets bigger. I think you start small with like an Israel-Iran thing, and then it starts escalating to you have like Muslim attacks in Europe or something like that, because they're chasing Sharia laws. And then it turns into like NATO going in to try to do something, but then while they're doing that, then China tries to do something, and then it turns into this just, I don't know if it's going to be, I don't think it's nuclear Armageddon. I mean, I don't think, at the end of the day, like, I think both sides realize that there's just fallout, and like that's not going to happen. But at the end of the day, I think it's just a giant trade war and just holding people captive, and kind of like Cold War, but like more intense because the technology.
Cold War, but like things are actually happening.
Yeah.
It's like, because the Cold War was all like just threats, and now the threat is, I just killed this guy. You don't want that to happen to you, do you?
Yeah.
Like that's the threat. But yeah, people are, I think that's super logical that it would happen with sort of the, I think that Israel's right at the center of everything right now. It makes the most sense to really spark things off. And I think some people probably want that to be the case.
Yeah. It's also one of those things like, okay, you could see World War III. Okay, World War II, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
The United States could have taken over Europe because we had the firepower. Germany was destroyed. Europe was destroyed. We went in and helped rebuild, but we didn't like conquer. So I could see World War III being China, United States. Russia doesn't count because they're not that big. Like they're big, but they're not that big. But like,
I think they're doing a good job of keeping things secret from us, and even their involvement in Ukraine, they know that we're just testing stuff and want to see what they're doing. Yeah. They're sending out some bullshit.
But I could see the World War III being a giant land grab with all these small nations taking each other out, and then these bigger nations coming in and like being just a giant, like, let's, for the lack of better terms, let's just use the two colors, red and blue. It's just like half the world's red, half the world's blue. Like, have you ever seen those videos on YouTube where it's like the United States, like, oh, we're going to do the all the states versus each other and see who is the winner at the end? It's almost something like that, where it just turns into
it's like Endgame of like Risk.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I think that's what World War III is. It's a giant just land grab.
Well, I guess that makes a lot of sense because
it goes back into history. That's kind of what used to happen. It was just like the Persian Empire or the Ottoman Empire. Like, I think it just is that again.
I think so too, because there's a lot of, first world countries, and we're up to speed on this, and they all have the opportunity to actually, have influence and change things, especially borders if they have military. And then there's all this like, yeah, there's people there. It's a third world country. They're doing whatever, but it's like clearly they're not, on the same advancement train that we're on.
Yeah.
And so, not to say that we should take them out or whatever, but like that's the idea. Is like naturally somebody's gonna say, "Hey, you're kind of wait." Like if you walked on a train or subway or something, and there's some dude that's just like there's an old lady that needs a seat down. He's sitting in her spot. It's like, "Hey, get up! Somebody else needs this."
Yeah.
Sort of idea, and that's just what happens.
Yeah, a lot of countries are a waste of space. I mean, you can see Africa's a huge continent, right? But it's a majority of it is third world country.
Right.
And it's like China, Russia, United States would love access to their minerals and everything that's
Right.
there. So that's why I think
England.
that's why I think a lot of it's just going to be them causing these wars, especially if the CIA can do what we think they did in Ukraine. You just create all these civil wars and then have the United States come in and say, hey, this is now our property. Like, you guys got destroyed. What are you going to do? Like, we're just going to take over. Or China does the same thing.
It just seems like it's madness because it's like to take over, you have to break everybody's trust and all this type of stuff. And nobody really knows whose side anybody's on because the borders are changing so quickly. And there's a lot of confusion. And so in that confusion, they're able to grasp, new territory. But I think a lot, like, I don't know if would really work out for us.
I don't think it would.
Because that might be where that fall of the empire thing comes from, is over expanding and losing the trust of.
Well, that's what happens. If you spread yourself thin, you get taken over.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, if you do what the United States is kind of doing and positioning themselves in countries just for like missile strategic strategy, like just for, I feel like you could take over stuff, but like China or like, let's say the Muslims and Sharia law or China, they want full global domination. They just want their empire to beat the whole entire world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I think that is a losing strategy because you spread yourself so thin. But the United States, I feel like they just want to have their own little like base everywhere around the world.
Right.
And we just want the United States, but we're going to have a base everywhere to have full control.
Yeah, that actually makes the most sense anyway, because then like what we're trying to do is really just spread the like freedom and ideology and proper everything really.
Yeah.
But just imagine like, okay, Brazil, if we, now that we take that over, it's still the same people there, it's the same land and all that, but we're going to renovate things, make things nicer for them, give them access to stuff, and also like control the crime and do the proper society stuff.
Yeah.
I think like everybody would be happier, but it sucks that, nobody wants to listen to the one person that's going to do it. Yeah. It's like everybody wants to be the, team captain or whatever. It's like sometimes you just need the person that gets results and knows what they're doing to do all this stuff. And it's tough to sell that to other people in other countries because they're probably detached a little bit from what we have going on. But I think some people can see through and some can't. It all just depends. I'm really curious on what their media is showing them in different countries sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are going to start realizing, especially if the United States comes out and Doge opens up all the corruption. I think a lot of countries' citizens are going to start questioning their own leadership. It's because if the United States is the top of the top, that means everybody else is doing it way worse than the United States.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people are going to start questioning. And I don't know what that leads to, but it's a great foothold for the CIA to come in. And
well, I've always thought, first of all, all right, well, the entire United States is a psyop.
What do you mean?
What about that?
Like,
so when we came over from England, that's all a psyop controlled thing. That's an experiment too.
Is that why all the presidents share a lineage? Because
probably is. And then there's also this thing where, technically speaking, Washington D.C., the city of London, and Vatican City are all three of those cities are one country. technically.
Yeah, it's
The
true.
Tri-City, I'm not sure if it's something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah. What do you think about that though? I think it's 100% possible. It makes a lot of sense, and why not? Also, you could say that England in the first place is just an extension of Rome.
I think everywhere but the United States. I can't see the United States because we got guns.
But I think it's sort of we're the TV for the rest of the world. That's how I look at it. Like, you know, like these actors are not playing themselves. They're playing the actor and doing all this. It's like the things that we're allowed to do and shown and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, I don't know. It feels like we're controlled actors in this big play that they show everybody else, and then they use that to control them.
That's interesting. Yeah. I think a lot is going to come out when the next pope becomes the pope.
Is there a word on a timeline for that?
Well, it has to be the next 10 years. Like, this guy's going to die. Like, like the guy who's in, he's pretty old. So it's like, it's got to be within the next 10 years. But that'll be interesting to see. Like, it's going to, whatever happens, it's going to challenge. It's not going to be just some other dude. Like, it's there. My opinion, it's going to be some crazy story. Kind of like Da Vinci Code, where it was like, this guy saved the world from a bomb that was going to kill, like, demolish Vatican City, and now they're going to put him as the Pope. Like, I think it's going to be some crazy thing. This is how I think it starts, though.
Okay.
I think there's a conflict in Israel. People are shooting missiles. They blow up the Temple Mount, which is that giant gold dome. I think that gets blown up, and then that leads starts like a giant war, and then I think the Vatican comes out in support of some side and gets a lot of like European countries on some side, and then the Vatican is like the one in charge, and they're successful, so then trust goes to the Vatican, and then from that they just grow into this like mass organization of like world control.
I think the Vatican has reaching into my bag now. The Vatican has control over a lot more than we realize, and you know, there's talk about different popes, and like, do you know about the Black Pope?
No.
So there's technically, supposedly, 3 popes. I'll fact check after this, but I'm pretty sure it's
like legitimate. At one time there's
3 popes right now, supposedly. So there's the white pope. That's the one that everybody knows. That's the public face.
Okay.
And then there's the black pope, and he's like. And that's, at first, people just thought there's the white pope and the black pope. The black pope supposedly is somehow more powerful and does things. I'm not sure exactly what it is. And then supposedly there's a gray pope, which is another, I don't know. And that's like a Trinity sort of situation there.
Oh, with those 3. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't remember what the titles and responsibility of the other 2 were exactly, but some more like secretive, controlling type stuff.
Because I could see if like the white pope was like the religion aspect, black pope is like army, and gray pope is like money. Like, I could see if it's like they all work together for giant control. Like, I mean, they make movies about that stuff, and like,
absolutely,
especially when you start claiming to be like God's chosen man on earth, like. And you have that many people that are Catholic in the world. Catholicism is like a huge religion across the world. So it's like, if you have that many people who truly believe that you're like chosen by God to be his voice on earth, you can control a lot. And it's like, if you, I mean.
Well, I think the big secret about the Vatican and all that stuff in general is really to people that are of, you know, the Catholic religion at surface value, it seems like, okay, yeah, this is all holiness, this is all good. But truthfully, you know, if you look at their architecture, they're clearly showing serpents and all this stuff. That just in religion, no matter what, there's a clear duality of stuff going on, of, you know, good and bad, you know, the devil and God, and, there's a bunch of stuff to say that, like, Lucifer and Jesus are just 2 sides of one coin, and like, because but it's 2 different people telling the same story essentially. Like, oh, he got kicked out of heaven. Oh, he got sent down from heaven. It's like,
Yeah, the interesting thing about Catholicism is compared to, I guess the difference between just regular Christianity and Catholicism is Catholicism, kind of like you're saying, seems like they control both sides of like what they're trying to portray. And it would make sense if it's like they're the ones controlling the outcome because of like the Vatican. Because I think there's the Catholicism and then there's like the deep Vatican Catholicism, which is like what you see in like Da Vinci Code and stuff like that. Like
I think at a certain point there, because they have, I think I talked on another episode about they have the demonology department, and there's like somebody that's the head of the demonology department, and they have records saying, yes, these demons are real. We have this. Here's the historical whatever, and they basically certify people to do exorcisms and stuff like that legitimately on behalf of the Vatican. And if they're doing that, that also shows like, okay, they're confirming both sides. But also they're committing to understanding the other side as well on just a real surface level. But if you look at like the Black Pope or whatever, it kind of makes sense that maybe is like the dark arts, so to speak, that you know they focus on. They don't want everybody to know that.
I'm gonna look that up real quick.
Yeah, please do. And so my concept is sort of like, there's a lot of history with like some pedophilia stuff going on with them. That's not a secret.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's the idea of sacrifice and all this type of stuff. That's some sort of like black magic-y, evil type of stuff. I don't know. It makes me think that it's possible that they could be orchestrating the pedophile ring, and it's more sacrificial than we realize. And they feel like they are divine and separate from us. And it's like, I don't know. There's like a lot of, if you just go back in history or in textbooks, or not textbooks, just religious books, there's like demons and angels are also like, cross compatible supposedly. It's like, well, all the demons in hell actually used to be angels in heaven and all this stuff, right? So there's this choice and flip side to stuff that it seems like, truthfully, it's the balance. And I actually kind of personally think this too, just in life, it's all balance, right? It's not about being good or bad. It's about, because if people try to be good their whole life, they're not testing themselves. They're not coming in contact with anything that's going to test them. And so they could be good, but it's like, but they haven't really shaped their character to actually be that persistent through everything, right? And if you're bad your whole life, you don't know what goodness really is or the power of that, right? But the balance of everything, you have the full perspective of everything. You really know what things mean, and you can interact like a real human. I think, that gray pope this would be the saving grace for them, because it's like, this is the allowance of having a black pope that does some seedy stuff, and hopefully it doesn't involve pedophilia. But if it's some demonic, something like that, it would make sense that like, yeah, there's somebody that does that sort of, all the darkness, and then there's somebody that does all the holiness and all the good, and then there's somebody that's like, I don't know, between them that just makes I would assume makes some sort of decisions on how the whole Vatican operates based off those two.
Yeah. And I didn't see anything. I didn't get anything when I looked it up. Yeah.
There's
it talked about like the Black Pope is like in charge of like the Jesuit side of the Catholics or something like that. So I'm not sure if there's like factions, kind of like.
Well, that's weird.
Kind of like in the United States Congress, there's like different like groups that you're a part of, or it basically was saying that's like what it's referring to.
But that's isn't the Jesuit group like that's Jewish?
No, I don't think so. No, the Jesuits is just like
a whole group,
a branch of the Roman Catholic Church, I believe.
Gotcha.
And I think I'm gonna look it up just to make sure, but I believe that it's like the more zealous like part. Do you know what I mean by that?
No, like
the more military side.
Oh, yeah. There's you can probably find a clip of
So the Jesuits are basically, the order was zealous in opposition of the Reformation. Despite periodic persecution, it retained an important influence in Catholic thought and education. So they were like the army. like
Right.
side, which makes sense when I was saying like the Black Pope is like the army side,
Yeah.
and then the white is like the like the good side or whatever, and then the gray must be monetary at that point because it like
Yeah, that would make sense actually. The gray would be monetary.
because they have a bunch of money that's like hidden and
Yeah.
they don't have to pay taxes or anything like that, and like
I'm really curious about the history of like the formation of like the world banking system and like the early because we've been lied about all of it. You're not
Sure.
going to find the truth, but it's
why do you think we have a
so
debt-based society?
it's an insane grift that started with probably one person and like expanded to control literally everything. The
Yeah.
entire economy is one person's idea essentially. And it's so crazy to see the power of like, you know, back in the day, people would rule just because, you know, you'd go kill a king or something, and now you just have the right to do it. But eventually, when kingdoms come and become in debt, it's
Yeah.
like kingdoms, like it's all over. We're now in a different era, and yeah, I'm just really curious to like how that happened because it seems so obvious, but I know they're so tricky,
Yeah.
and it's a whole new concept to people.
Yeah. I wonder who controls. I mean, eventually, I think it all goes back to the Vatican. Like, if everyone is in debt, like there's a meme where it was like 3 people and it was like, oh, you owe me $10. Here's your $10.
Right,
And it
yeah.
keeps going in a circle.
I think the Three Stooges did that.
Yeah. But like at the end of the day, there has to be one person who's owed all the debt.
Right.
And for me, it's like that has to either be the Vatican because they have the quote unquote power to say, oh, well, we're chosen by God. You know, they could use that to their
Yeah.
advantage, you know, but like be mysterious about it. Or it has to be some other group that's using the Vatican's influence. So instead of Vatican being on top, it's like another group on top of the Vatican.
I
It's like,
think there's a clear connection between 3 entities, one being the Vatican, next being the CIA, and
Mossad.
yeah, actually.
Yeah.
Yep. Thanks.
Mossad is insane. Like
is.
the whole walkie-talkie thing, let alone I think that was just a slight like just the everybody getting to see like that they have that ability. Think about what else they're like
Oh, yeah.
deep into. Like
I mean,
Crazy.
and you just go into like the Saudis buying, you know, all the entertainment, you know, fighting entertainment, especially over here, and we were just talking about how that's all programming and entertainment, and it's all rigged and all this type of stuff, and it's sort of a psyop in and of itself. And yeah, I think yeah, the CIA and Mossad definitely have a crazy relationship.
have to.
And I think the Vatican is the part that people don't so easily connect to that, but it's like you just don't realize how much power they have because they just don't talk about it.
because what if CIA and Mossad? Because I don't think there's any others that like are at their level that I can think of.
I think there's well,
Because KGB I don't think is that
no, no,
big.
no.
China I don't think they have one. But like
MI6 realistically is probably formatted into one of those, and probably
Yeah.
CIA by now.
But like, what if Mossad and CIA are just branches out of the Vatican?
Of the Vatican,
And,
yeah,
and they're
absolutely.
literally just their whole goal is just to influence the whole world. But it's almost like, yeah, the CIA is part of the United States, the Mossad is part of Israel, but like they were bought and placed, and then they just got changed from within, and now they're both just working on behalf of the Vatican.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And I don't know, because if just the way the CIA operates, it would have seemed like if they're just in our country and in our control, somebody else would have been able to check them, put them in their place. It's only when you have somebody else backing you up and like outsword pressure to put on people that you've been able to get away with stuff so long, you know, and pull off a whole assassination on JFK and, you know, the whole 9. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's also weird thinking that the Vatican's like one of the only countries that isn't really seeing war or isn't seeing like anything bad happen there. It's always just fine in the Vatican. Like Italy's
Yeah.
always, nothing bad is happening in it. And it's just weird to think about.
I'm really curious because, yeah, the Vatican, nothing ever goes wrong. But, you know, you have the Vatican City and then you have like Jerusalem. And
Yeah.
like, you know, people go to Mecca and that's a whole thing. And there's something weird about both of those.
Yeah.
It seems like, you know, like if you go to one of those places, it's, Yeah, it seems all nice and whatever, but it's like if you look around, you'd see how controlled that environment is to make that like they're presenting that to everybody. They want everybody to see and think it's like that. But then, right outside, it's like, war zones or whatever's going on.
Yeah.
Not the Vatican so much, but it's just really interesting to see like there's such a powerful pull to both of those places on a religious aspect. I don't think there's any other places that, pull that much realistically.
Yeah, it's just the Jerusalem, Mecca, and then the Vatican is like the three places. And I've been to the Temple Mount. Like I've been to Jerusalem, and it's crazy over there.
Yeah.
Like everything's so tight. Everyone has guns everywhere.
Right.
It's just on a hairpin. Like everyone's just like freaking out. So I could imagine it's not as much in Mecca because it's so like Muslim controlled, and then Vatican is so Catholic controlled. So it's like that's why it's interesting to see everything happening in Israel, because it's like that's not under control,
right,
compared to like these other two. So it's interesting.
And like the actual black cube.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift is standing on a huge black cube at her concerts and stuff like that, and like it seems like a lot of people that have no reason to be messaging towards certain things are like really infatuated too. It's not just the religious people that like are all about these places. There's some sort of, it almost seems like there's some sort of hidden power there, or people with power or something, or they want you to think that. I'm not entirely sure, but there's some symbolic stuff that I don't fully grasp yet about those, just because it's like I've never really looked into them that deep from this angle.
Yeah.
But it's like it just seems like, I don't know, like especially like just that cube with Taylor Swift is it makes zero sense to me. And why would that person do that on such a public level? Like it means something. I don't know what that means, but
I don't know. That's like deep. Like
it is
we're going
deep.
like we'd have to research to like, because it's like in the surface level, it's just like they go there because that's where they're told to go in their religion,
right?
And so it's because like Jerusalem used to be Solomon's temple, and everybody would what's the word? Not migrate, but they would
journey.
What's the word where they like go on their pilgrimage?
Yeah.
So it's like the Solomon's temple was a pilgrimage. Mecca is a pilgrimage. Like the Vatican is a pilgrimage. So it's almost like the end times. A lot of people, or what is thought to happen in the end times, is that the Temple Mount is destroyed, because the Temple Mount where I went, the Dome on the Rock, is like where the old temple used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like if that gets rebuilt, then there's three standing, like there's the Vatican, and then there's Mecca, and then there's
See, and that's my favorite too. I love Solomon. Like out of everybody, like that's the best. And I mean, just really interesting if anyone wants to go look that up. Just anything about him. Yeah, great stuff there. Yeah. But I kind of think, what if there's, the Holy Grail?
Like Indiana Jones?
No, the actual Holy Grail, which is like King Arthur of the Round, gathered the Knights of the Round, and they sought out the Holy Grail, and they.
But like you're saying the same.
And then
are you talking about like a cup, like in the like, or like
potentially?
Okay, I thought you were talking about like the Hollywoodized version.
Yeah, not saying it's specifically a cup, but the idea of a Holy Grail, and that's open to a couple different interpretations, but it definitely seemed like at some point there was a ridiculous amount of money spent by a bunch of different ridiculously powerful people, and they spent a lot of time looking for this thing, a lot of money, their entire lives.
Hitler looked for it.
I was about to say Hitler was one of those people much later down the line after a bunch of other people did. And sort of there's a story of there's like a mountain that a castle was on in France, and that was like the last place that they were supposed to have it, or supposedly somebody had it. An army came, and I don't know if this is during the Crusades, I want to say, but they They'd killed everybody there. Somebody ran down the mountain, disappeared. We don't know what happened. That's the official story, supposedly. Like, that's all we're going to get. But the idea of a Holy Grail, and not just a Holy Grail, but artifacts in general that have power, whether because they have some sort of power in them and that's, some mumbo jumbo or whatever, or because they have knowledge that is so powerful, just knowing it will give you power, essentially.
The crystal skull.
Something.
Yeah.
And I think the elite people are definitely after these things. Like Bill Gates has got, the Codex from Da Vinci and all this stuff. And, we always talk about the Library of Alexandria, like where'd all that stuff really go?
Yeah.
And even the, all the art that was destroyed, during the Holocaust and all that stuff and other stuff that got destroyed with it. What do you think about like actual artifacts being out there that maybe these people are really trying to protect and they almost give them the power to control to a degree?
So I think that if I was the Vatican or a big organization like that, I would say if you were able to get your hands on something like that, you wouldn't show it to the public until you wanted to use it for a certain point, which is control, power, XYZ. So I think artifacts are still out there, but they're being kept secret until they want to release them to gain people to their side. Because it's almost like, I guess not the occult, but it's almost like we know we can sway people to our side if we bring this thing forward. So you look at Indiana Jones, for instance. They Hollywoodized basically that idea of searching for these grails, right? So it's like if you found the Ark of the Covenant, right? It's like if the Orthodox Church or the Catholic Church came out with this, they'd be like, well, we have God's power based off this object. So they'd be able to draw people to them. But not for like a monetary gain, but just for like a more of a control type thing. Because like money means nothing if you have a grail to these people. So it's like, I don't know what what Islam has compared to like grails, or urban legends or whatever. I don't know if I don't know that research off the top of my head, but like the Catholic Church, it's like Noah's Ark, the whole Ark of the Covenant, and then the last one is the the crucifixion site. So it's like if you have like complete proof of like if they're like, oh, this is it, they can bring it to these people and like show them for control. So I think 100% that there's the idea that these are out there, and that I think a lot of them, these like the Vatican or whatever, they have stuff like that, or they know where they're located, or they have them, but they're waiting to reveal them until they feel like they can gain control from revealing them. Because the question begs, if they have them, why haven't they released it? Right? It's just like aliens, right? Or it's like UFOs. It's like, if it's out there, you feel like you would just release it, but it's like there's a reason that they aren't releasing what they have, because they don't want to, because they don't need. It's just like a Uno reverse card. It's like you don't play it until you absolutely need to play it.
Yeah.
So I think it's one of those things. But I mean, the Vatican is like itself, the grounds are complex. Like you could hide stuff there.
Oh yeah.
Like same thing.
There's got to be a huge underground network.
So but I mean, there's a lot of history channels and stuff that you can watch about like looking for stuff or stuff being hidden. But the amount of stuff that is hidden is crazy.
It is.
To think about like the secretness around. I mean, you can watch Da Vinci Code and see how like the secret societies and stuff like that exist like to this day, and like protect stuff. So but I mean, some of that stuff nowadays is so hidden, like you won't.
The interesting one was that like the Ark of the Covenant. Because it's also people talk about like what was in the Ark of the Covenant too. Is it the Ark? Is it what was in the Ark? And then that Holy Grail, if I'm not mistaken, was supposed to be the cup that Jesus drank out of, like at the Last Supper. Could be wrong about that.
Because I know that's what Indiana Jones, like Hollywood is like that's the last. But I don't know.
But I think the idea there is a little bit different, and it's like you got to interpret it a little bit. It's like a lot of people think, oh, it's the cup that he drank out of or whatever. Okay, cool. A lot of people, because it's like, it's like the blood is the wine, right? Like,
yeah. Well, the reason that they consider, so Catholics consider that cup. I mean, if you were to consider that the Holy Grail, like let's just assume that that's what it is, right? Mm-hmm. It's the cup, is because they believe in transubstantiation, which is whenever they do mass and they do communion, right. They're actually saying, oh, whenever you eat this bread and drink this wine, it actually is turning into Jesus' actual flesh and blood right. when you consume it. So like that would be like a reason that they would say, oh, that's the Grail, because it has to match what they're talking about.
I think it's sort of like, and that makes sense, where you're like, okay, just drinking out of that cup in general was sort of, that's the ultimate version of that. But I also think it's possible that it's not about the cup, it's about what's in the cup, and it's literally about blood.
Yeah.
And and not just like Jesus blood, but just blood in general.
So you're saying
I think the Vatican knows that.
Well, hold on. So you're saying that they believe that there was actually blood in there, or?
Well, it's like, this is the blood and the body of Jesus Christ, right? And so, like, where does that all come from? Is from the Last Supper, right? And so, that Last Supper, it's open to interpretation, just like all religion. But you could think whatever you want, but some would believe that they drank the blood of Jesus Christ that
I see
night.
what you're saying. But that's what I'm saying.
So it's not about the cup.
Because they believe like I was saying, the transubstantiation. Like they believe like that it turns. I don't know if they believed that when Jesus gave it to his disciples before he was crucified, that like, I don't know, like that deep into Catholicism, but like right. I know that that's what they talk about. But like at the end of the day, like I don't know what like the.
Well, I
feel like they would have the cup. I feel like they would parade that around, because if you're the Pope, then you would just be like, proof. Here you go. Like
I don't
feel
think
like
so. I think if you were like up to good, you show people. But if you're not up to good and you got maybe some other things we don't know about and all this, maybe you wouldn't want to do that. But I literally think it's just about blood. It's not just Jesus' blood. It's literally any human blood, especially at this point, right? And there's like power in blood, and that's why people do blood sacrifices and all sorts of different things like that. And there's, if you go into just like the idea of like magic is something they really babytized. They just made it real, not what it originally was. Like it used to be like, pretty like, oh, people in hoods and like real like serious and whatever. Now they've made it all wizards and Harry Potter and like, fun and they always like water down stuff. But honestly, if you even start with Harry Potter, you just start like, where do these ideas come from, and start finding the sources. Like it all goes way back to the origin of like, this is all where religion in the first place sort of came from. There was no religion before, like occultism and all that. But it was serious work. People really did that for a long time. Witchcraft got practiced for a long time. People did this seriously. There's like a bunch of stuff out there about it, right? And then so like one of the things that comes out of that is like blood over intent is what they talk about. It's like literally spilling the blood of whether it's yourself, an animal, somebody else, whatever it is. It's like if you want something to happen, like a lot of people will pray for something. It's like, these people, they take it into their own hands and they'll go sacrifice something, and that is their prayer. And they think they get better results and all this type of stuff. And I don't know. I'm just real curious because I think people talk about all sorts of stuff with the Vatican. But
yeah, I mean that the amount of movies, and it's also hard because like everything has been Hollywoodized for us, and it's like those are a lot of the images and stuff that's like stuck in our heads. But I mean, definitely like it'd be interesting to go do a deep dive research of like, what's there? What does this statue mean there? Or like, and it's hard because the freaking the Da Vinci Code.
What I was gonna say though is the all of that magic though, like the tradition and all of that stuff, it goes back to King Solomon and King Solomon's temple.
Interesting.
Like, so do you know much about him or any of the stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I know like a lot of it.
Well,
But like,
it's like
I didn't know about
my
that
favorite
stuff.
stuff is not like in the Bible or any of that stuff. It's outside of that. It's
Oh,
not gonna be included.
I haven't heard
And
about any of that
so
stuff.
it's like his story is that the temple itself was constructed by demons essentially under his control. He was the first man to command demons at his will with a ring that he had.
What?
And this is probably where like Lord of the Rings and all that sort of stuff like gets its ideas from. But yeah, there was one ring essentially to rule them all. And the ring itself had inscribed on it, "This too shall pass."
Lord
Yeah,
yeah, interesting.
like they're literally pulling from it. But what "this too shall pass" actually means is it's like if something good is going on right now, it's not forever, right? But also if something is bad, this too shall pass. So it's like a two-side double meaning duality thing. But anyway, I forget exactly how it happened, but I guess like demons used to roam the earth supposedly according to the the books. And I don't know if he spoke to God or whatever. I got to brush up on this, but basically he gave him the power through this ring to control demons and command them at his will. And so then he took control of them and also was able to control animals at his will. And this is all like super. The Vatican would back this up 100%.
What?
But yeah, he was able to control demons and animals and all this stuff. The demons built that temple for him, and he basically, controlled them and commanded them by name. And like, and that's like the part that they leave out of the Bible because they don't want you like thinking about that part. But basically,
Oh, so it's like the Catholic canon is like that's like stuff they talk about. Gotcha.
just like because they acknowledge demons, but it's like, oh, just avoid demons, all this whatever. But it's like they're leaving out this thing where it's like,
So you're saying they're like leave it out because it's gonna affect people or it's gonna make people uncomfortable. So like leave it out type thing.
it would make people feel uncomfortable, but also it's like they're not saying the part where if you didn't know that you could control a demon, but you believe in a demon, anything that bad happens, even if it's placebo, you're now victim to it because you feel like you couldn't do anything about it. And you're now in this thing, and you're just in this scared state, trying to be religious, doing the right thing. But it's sort of a control tactic of like free will in essence. Because if you're not scared of any of this stuff, and it's like, you could say, oh, different forces act upon you in your daily life, like negativity coming your way is like demons or whatever. It's like from that perspective, it's like if they're controlling people to not stand up to anything or do all this, like they'll control and rule forever.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've never heard about that Solomon thing. I'll do some research on that. I've never
It's a good one to look into.
I've never heard of that. Interesting.
Yeah.
There was something else I wanted to talk about.
Did you see Chuck Schumer? Or not Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell.
They fell down.
Dude, what is going on over there?
Someone's trying to kill that dude.
Yeah. But no, they just want to make a point over and over again to us. I don't know. But that was just wild to me.
Yeah. It's also because, it also shows like we don't need that many old people in there. And it's
gonna slow us down.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's like 20 people behind him, just to hold him up, I guess.
Yeah, Pelosi has her walker now.
Yeah.
And it's for me, I think a lot of it is the ego is, if anything, it shows me like the ego is a powerful thing and that people cannot let it go. Like that the fact that he's been in power technically for so long. Pelosi's been, they've been a member of Congress for so long or whatever it is. And like, they just can't retire because it's who they are. And it's like the ego of like, I'm literally going to die in this position. Even though they're like elected in, it's like, it's like at some point you'd be like, it's public service. I'd be like, okay, I'm going to stop serving and I'm going to go spend time with my family.
Well, like, especially when, at first people didn't know to hate you. People don't like you guys now, you know? It's like you might want to get out of here because the temperature in the room is changing a little bit, And I think that's why Pelosi got out right on time.
Well, because she's still in, but she's not the Speaker of the House anymore.
Well, yeah, from her
She's still
speaker
a
position.
she's still a representative.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
she's not. It's completely different. She just makes her votes and
She
tries not to say anything crazy.
Makes her money now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think. I don't know. I'm interested to see what's happening because there's a lot of younger representatives and people coming in now, and a lot of. So it's going to be interesting to see the new wave come in and to see, especially with all this corruption stuff start coming out. It's gonna be interesting to see a lot of them. Like imagine if there's just mass resignations, like from people like sitting senators and stuff.
I doubt it.
But like, what if there was? Like, what if they were like, one day there's just 40 people who resign, and it's like, whoa.
I mean, what happens then? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, there'd be some definite. I mean, you could see Biden pardoned everyone he pardoned.
God, yeah.
So it's one of those things too. Like he pardoned. I mean, it turns into that is almost like where there's just mass resignations. Because what's his face? He was running for Attorney General, Matt Gaetz.
Yeah.
And he resigned because they
Yeah.
were going to start opening a lot of his stuff up, and he was like, "Nope, like I'm done," because it's kind of like an LLC. It's like if you were in this job role, you could just back out, and they're going to stop investigating you because you're not in power anymore. Like, why would they waste their time investigating you as a private citizen?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm just going to step out. So I feel like a lot of people soon are going to be like, I just resign. Like, I'm not going to go in. Or the smart people would have already resigned.
Well, I think people like Bernie are going to be looking for ways to, you know, switch up and just get out of sight, honestly, probably. Man, he was so pissed. Like, I mean, I love RFK for that.
Yeah.
He just, man, he was not going to let that slide, and he called him straight out to his face.
You're sponsored by them. No, I'm not. I'm not sponsored by them. Like
He tried to, hey,
It's so
you know,
funny.
and then he didn't have anything to say about
it was honestly like, how dare you? Like, like that was a secret. Like,
Right.
like
we're supposed to be on the same team. Stick to the script.
yeah, 100%. But that's why it's cool to see everyone Trump's bringing in, because they're not part of the script. They're not part of the deep state. Whereas that's why a lot of them, I think, right now are freaking out because they weren't expecting Trump to do this. Like, they weren't expecting him to go full gun ho, and now all of their stuff is being aired out.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh crap. That's why I think people are going to resign, because I think people are going to get sick of pretending of stuff that they like are involved in, that they're just gonna be like, you know what, it's not worth it. Because as soon as Pam Bondi starts like prosecuting people for like corruption and they start going after people, I think a lot of resignations are gonna start happening, especially when you open the right door and Pelosi happened to be in that room, that door that you opened.
Oh man,
she's just gonna be like, nope, I'm done. Like, or nope, I'm done. Like, this person.
I'm actually surprised that hasn't happened already, just because of.
Well, she didn't have to worry about it because she was covered. But next, like, it's going to start happening when all it takes is Trump's like, or let's say Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, is going to go into this bank, and then they're going to audit this bank, and it happens to be tied to this LLC that happens to be tied to Chuck Schumer.
What if they're staying in power because if they step out and, you know, just retire essentially, then they might get killed? What if they're only safe by being a public figure in a certain way because they've gotten so deep into it, and
once you're out of power, we don't need
whoever
you anymore.
their enemies are, they can find them.
Yeah, that's true.
No matter what. It's like the safest place is to be a bitter old, you know, position holder, I guess.
I could see, you know what would be interesting too? I could see, not wishing this on anybody, but I could, based on the assassination attempts on Trump, I could see somebody trying to assassinate Fauci.
I think, Fauci, man.
Because the amount of, if you start looking at the...
And he got pardoned, entirely.
Mm-hmm. If you start seeing all these people that are getting pardoned, or people that know way too much in the position that they're in, I could see them getting picked off, because it's like, oh, that person's going to talk. You know, especially if you get your feet held to the fire, kind of like what Epstein did, right? If they had him, eventually somebody must have like wanted him to talk, and they keep whatever, like that whole thing. Like you could go down that rabbit hole of like people start getting assassinated because people are like, oh, that person's going to eventually have to talk, get rid of them. So I think
there's going to be a lot more attempts to come.
Yeah, probably.
Which is crazy.
I think there's a lot of stuff going on at one time too.
It is
like a lot of like parts and pieces that are.
It's
happening.
like exciting, maybe I wouldn't say scary, it's maybe a little bit nerve-wracking sometimes, like you never know what's going to happen. Unpredictable for sure, but it's like exciting to see. And like I was saying, it's like the return to society.
Yeah.
It's like simultaneously you get the best with the worst at the same time, or you have just even, neutral, boring forever.
Yeah.
And that's what we grew up in basically. And now it's turning into we see a lot of savagery, but we're also going to do a lot of good things over here. And it's like sometimes things are just brutal to get results. And it's like eventually you're going to grow up and have to mature, and like, things are not pretty all the time. And that's a good message for us to, to soak in, I think.
Yeah.
I had one more.
Yeah. What's up?
So there was
to wrap it up.
Yeah, there was a shooting in like a school shooting in Sweden. It was either Sweden or Switzerland, but there's like, and both of those are Switzerland especially are the safest places. They always talk about the quality of everything, education, even their prison systems, the lowest crime rate in the world essentially, and somehow there was some kid got their hands on, I believe, an AR-15 and shot up a school, and multiple people died over there in Switzerland. And this seems like, one, that's wild because it shows like, hey, they're always complaining about us, like stuff's going on over here, school shootings, this and that. It can happen anywhere, but also it seems like a little suspicious to me. Like it's always the AR-15, and like it's always on time. Like right when we've got some gun bills going on right now to change legislation, they're gonna try to fearmonger and push this type of story. But I think the American stories, like, they're not gonna get through with that. They want to garner support from the rest of Europe so that Europe bothers us, so that we'll be we'll listen to them because they know what's going on.
That's interesting. I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, it's just completely random, but
yeah, it's interesting though. Like you were saying, it always happens at the right time.
Yeah.
Like there's always some shooting that happens at the right time. And I'm not talking like the Texas shooting, like Allen shooting. I'm talking about like something at a school like Parkland or something like that. It's just like, that's just such a weird like timing, like the timing of everything when that happens. It makes you feel like it's an inside like hire or.
And the way that like there's so long for the response times and everything, it's like it, and even the like the Trump assassination, it seems like people are given windows sometimes to I don't know, and I don't know if that's a psyop or planned murder.
I think the second one, like the first, so the second assassination attempt when the guy didn't even get shots off, he was just hiding in the bushes.
Yeah,
I think he was like the last true attempt of like, hey, just when you see him, just start shooting type thing. And he happened to get caught. But the first one, I think, was like legit, like, here's our opportunity, give every opportunity in the book, like the rules of engagement. It's like, okay, like there's a guy pointing a gun. Like that's so dumb. Like the whole rules of engagement thing is like, there's a guy with a sniper rifle that they saw and no one's patrolling that area. They let the dude get up there. Everything is almost like they just let it happen, and then the dude misses. Yeah, and it's like
I still don't know how I feel about that whole thing, to be honest. I don't know if I believe that that kid actually shot him in the ear.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that were like, "There's a second shooter,"
right?
But
I mean, it's possible, but I just don't know.
All I know is that kid must have sucked. Because I could have made that shot.
That's what I'm saying.
Like I wouldn't even have to warm up. I could have just sat down on that roof. I mean, he got 3 shots off. Like I understand you missed the first one, but like if you whole scope that, like even it, because I think he had a magnifier.
I want to say it was at 150 or closer.
But like I wouldn't even need a magnification. I could just use red dot, and it at least would have hit body.
Yeah.
Like, and so that's why it's interesting. Like. I don't know.
Well, it's insane to me because like it just doesn't seem like you would set up there. It doesn't seem like that's how you would do it at all. And what you're talking about, like people just the rules of engagement, letting things happen. It's like then if people are knowing he's on the roof and doing this, they clearly did not communicate, because if he got 3 shots off, like, you should have been on him the entire time, at least, if you were going to wait for your rules of engagement. But yeah, somebody didn't want people communicating, or I don't know.
But the other part for me is like, they knew he was there. Why'd they let Trump get on the stage? Like, because the whole point is, okay, rule of engagement, we can't shoot. Then why would you let Trump get on stage?
Do you think Secret Service was compromised?
I think so, because at the end of the day, you would have because they would have seen him there, right? Because they would have combed the whole area.
Mhm.
We have snipers looking at every direction, especially rooftops. Come on. It's like elementary. Like, you would have seen him and you would have said, hey, get Trump off the stage, or don't let him come out into the crowd. And then you would have sent people over there, armed SWAT team, and would have neutralized or arrested the threat. But the fact that they let Trump get out on the stage, they knew the guy was there the whole time, and they don't shoot, and then they let the guy get shots off, and then they neutralize him, like, to me is like, it's so fishy. Like,
Don't you think it almost seems like they wanted us to see that kid and like him get shot and all this, and that's what leads me to potentially believe that he wasn't the real shooter, essentially, because his weapon system just didn't really make sense for trying to do any sort of accurate shot in the first place. And I don't know, a lot of stuff was fishy about that. But then there's also, the theories about the water tower in the background, and there being a shooter over there. And a lot of people are getting it confused because, like, this kid's shot was an easy shot and he didn't do so well. They're like, oh, nobody on that water tower can make that shot. A trained person with the right weapon system can absolutely make that shot. And also, if they wanted to, they probably realistically could aim in weight of where, if he turns his head, the second he turns it, his ear will be here. We have this hold. We have it mathematically dialed.
That'd be insane.
Exactly.
Though.
But, I mean, you've got people making, mile-long headshots.
But, I mean, you also have to control Trump being Trump. So it's like, how do you control him? Like, because then you have, like, now you're talking about cadences of, like, okay, move. And, like how are you, if anything, it basically is like something so close, like 10 feet away, and that's what made the shot. Like, because like, you're talking about, like, spin drift and, like, all this stuff, and, like, that's.
But I'm also talking about, like, okay, if you're using just a basic rifle sort of thing, you're not calculating any of that stuff. Somebody that would be in that position is calculating all of that stuff, and that makes the most sense to make an accurate shot like that. And now they have scopes. I think Vortex has a new one that they're issuing to the military that it literally calculates everything, shows you exact hold of here, and it pinpoints. You don't have to do any of your stuff.
I mean, that's like hard. That's like out there.
Is,
like,
but I was demonstrating to somebody else to where if he's like sort of looking in this direction, if you aimed, let's see. Okay, so let's say he's looking at the crowd this direction, but he has his right side and his left side to address. At some point, he's going to turn this way. At some point, he's going to turn this way. You can usually catch him because he's at a podium standing in the same spot.
Yeah.
If he's looking this way, but I know that when he turns his head this way, it's going to be like right here, an inch out from, it would technically be the shot is in front of his face. And that it's not, unless he leans forward, it's not really going to kill him. But you know that if he turns, you'll actually hit him in the ear. It's possible.
I guess.
That's all I'm saying.
Everything's possible at some point, but, like, what a shot.
Yeah, crazy.
It had to be, because then you start thinking of the movie Shooter, where it's like a machine doing it, because human error is so much at that point, to where it's like.
Am I misremembering that movie? You're talking about the Mark Wahlberg movie, Shooter?
Yeah, where they have, like, that basically Gatling gun thing that they plug in all the numbers to, and it makes the shot.
I got to rewatch that movie.
Oh, it's
a good one.
Movie. Great movie. Love that movie. But anyway, I think that's it, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
I think we'll wrap it up.
All right.
Sounds good.